This video is going to be walking through a very quick checklist and providing you a downloadable one-pager to make sure that your website is making the most out of your images for your SEO. So if you've watched any of our other SEO videos, you're no stranger to SEO, and in particular, technical and on-page SEO. If you haven't seen those videos, know that on-page and technical SEO is simply a practice of optimizing a website's physical content or the layout of your page to make it better for SEO. Now, SEO happens both in your website and at a higher level at a strategic side. A lot of our past videos, like headings and title tags, helped users and business owners from all over help try to make the most of those headings and title tags for the sake of their SEO and for their marketing. Now, today's video is going to be talking about another hugely important topic, and one that I can almost guarantee that you have been looking for your SEO. And that's really simply images. Images can be seen all over the website, and it's really easy to forget that Google does tend to look at those and try to rank your website based off what it sees. This video is going to be walking through a very quick checklist and providing you a downloadable one-pager to make sure that your website is making the most out of your images for your SEO. Alright, images. So we love to use images. We love to find the most beautiful stock images and use them for our social media, find the biggest, best, and brightest images and put them all over our website, but that might not be the best thing, and you might be hurting yourself more than you're helping. So images are a hugely important factor to technical optimization for your SEO because Google will link to those for a ranking factor. Now, there isn't a lot to know other than the fact that there's a lot of key areas that you need to be watching for to make sure that your images are SEO optimized. Alright, so I'm just going to be walking through a couple ideas that you can spot check as you go through and optimize your own media gallery. So tip number one, descriptive file names. More often than not when I work with photographers, I get an image back that is just a jumbled, GUID letter, strings, numbers, capitals, dashes, all baked into each other, and it doesn't make sense. If I as a user can't read the title of a image and know exactly what it's about, then there's probably an issue there. And believe it or not, Google will have an issue with that as well. I think what I like about modern SEO and what I like what Google does is that they try to humanize their approach, such that the ranking factors that Google is doing, like page readability and contextual awareness, those things impact a Google search bot just as much as they'll impact a user. So we want to try to be optimizing our file names so that whether you're a user or whether you're Google, you can read that file name and know exactly what it's about. Now, one word of caution is be careful about the joining things that you put between your letters or your numbers. You always want to use dashes, not underscores. If you put two words together and you put an underscore between it, Google is actually going to read that as one word smushed together and probably not understand it. Whereas if you put a dash, Google will infer that as a space and see them as two separate words. The second hugely important one, and similar to the first item there, is alt tags. So alt tags are a little bit more complicated because they have both a foot in the SEO world and in the world of accessibility. So first tip for your alt tags is, well, to use them where it makes sense. Alt tags are going to do two things. Number one, they're going to tell Google a little bit about what your image is about. And number two, if it's present, then a user with a visual impairment or perhaps somebody that's simply using a screen reader will hear that alt tag read out to them. So as a user, if you're using a screen reader as you tab or you number through and you hit an image, if that image has an alt tag, then it's meant to be read aloud to the user, and what it's going to try to do is audibly describe what that image is about as best as it can so that user can make sense of that. Now, some images, like let's say like a background or something that's just got like dots in it, that's purely decorative and that doesn't really change the content or the flow. Now you can imagine how weird or jarring it would be if you've never used a screen reader to hear the names or the things of images that are simply in the background, things that aren't actually meant to be part of the content. And that's part of it. So if you've never tried a screen reader before, I would seriously recommend it. It's more painful when a website has not been designed for accessibility than you can possibly imagine. So make sure you're thinking about these users and only adding an alt tag for images that you feel have a purpose and should be read out loud. So let's say then you do have one of those images. Awesome. A couple really quick tips then is to make it descriptive. Don't make it too long, but make sure that a user can physically hear that and know exactly what the image is talking about. And number two, use synonyms and keywords, of course. Never keyword stuff, and don't put your words in there more than once or twice, but definitely feel free to use a synonym that might be relevant to your keyword and still add some context. So number 3 is a title tag. Now, a title tag is far less important, but similar to the alt tag, it does add a little bit of context or relevance to what the image is about. So if you're a user using a media gallery and a CMS like, let's say, WordPress, take what you put in that alt tag and add it into the title there as well. Number 4, image sizes. You would not believe how many times I get an image from a photographer that's 10,000 pixels by 8,000 pixels, and they just expect me to put that on the website. I don't think a lot of people really realize the level of optimization that needs to go in the images of the websites that you're putting in. So for example, if you have an image and you're about to put it on a website in a portrait format, make sure that you're not trying to give it a landscape format. I mean, that one might be a bit of an obvious one, but don't rely on your website to be cutting and cropping your images to fit them to the page's content. But of course, you want to make sure that that image is actually the right size it's supposed to be. If you've got a very small section, typically speaking, you'd be getting an image and it's only going to be, like, say, 500 by 300 or something like that. You don't want to be putting an image in there that's 2500 by 200 or 2000 in there. It would be far too big, and ultimately the size of the image has a big impact on how it looks on the page and how fast it can load. So as you upload these images to your website, try to assess where is that image going to go and try to optimize it for that placement. This next one you might have seen, but isn't an all that common of a practice, but it's one that I really love, and it's captions. So adding a small little caption below an image that, could be a little bit of a lighter font or even just a little smaller, but could describe a little bit about what that image is about. I think a lot of us might see this traditionally in textbooks or science and math diagrams with a little bit of description of a graph or a chart that we're seeing, but something like that can be applied to really any image. And if you are talking about a niche or something that maybe isn't widely understood, captions can do a really, really good job of having context or answering a user's question as they go through your content. Next one, which I think we're all guilty of, is use unique images. Users on the internet from all over can see a stock image when they see it. They know exactly what it looks like, and they've probably seen somebody doing that exact picture or in that exact pose 100 times. It's really easy to tell, and honestly, it detracts from the experience of a website. I know personally, when I go to a website, when I see unique, personalized images for a business, I actually appreciate that a little bit more. And I think at the end of the day, the business's personality stands a little bit more too. So don't use stock images as best as you can, and always try to work with the photography team to get yourself your own custom images. So if you've got some really awesome images, don't be afraid to try to get a rich result into your website. So a rich result is a type of schema and a special search engine result that can appear on search engine result pages. If you're familiar with them, you probably have seen them in the type of a recipe, a video, a job posting, something like that, even an FAQ. Those are types of special results that a website builder has to put into their code, such that if and they're lucky, Google will see that as a special rich result and then show that slightly fancier result page that might look, again, like a recipe or something. There are a couple different types of rich results that can use images, such as recipes and, again, videos. So if you've got something that aligns to that, consider adding a rich result into your website and using those images so you get right on that front page of Google and those users see those big, beautiful images. All right, file size. File size, I think, can be directly proportional to the overall size of your image, but it's really, really, really important that the size and the formatting of your file have been optimized as much as you can. And that's for a lot of reasons. Number one, Core Web Vitals has introduced a lot of new performance metrics that gauge a website's performance and provide some SEO value based off how well it's doing. The better fine-tuned and optimized your images are, the faster your website is going to load, so the faster you'll have a better SEO ranking when it comes to your Core Web Vitals. And number two, as a user, I don't want to see a slow website. Typically speaking, if a user's website has to load for longer than 2 or 3 seconds, they're going to straight up leave. So optimizing your images are hugely important to make sure that your users are staying on the page and seeing those beautiful images that you want them to. How bad would it be if you spent hours looking for the perfect image for your header, but it was so big and so poor loading that nobody ever went on the website? It'd be a complete waste of time, at least for that page. So make sure that even after you put an image on your page, that you try refreshing and take a look at how well it's performing. If you're using a modern CMS like, let's say, WordPress, there are dozens of free image optimizing tools out there that can help you with that. We love WP Shmush, but you might also try like a CDN like Nitro to help you optimize these types of images automatically. And be careful with the type of the file format that you're using as well. Typically speaking, there are certain file formats like JPEG that you can compress to a lossy format that allow them to be optimized for websites specifically. Okay, and last but certainly not least are image sitemaps. So if you are a website owner, then chances are you have a sitemap, which is a little item or a little page that somebody can go to, most often like a search engine, and they'll go there to understand the structure and the pages that exist on your website. Now, typically we make a sitemap for search engines like Google, and we'll submit that sitemap and say, hey Google, this is a map of every page and how it flows on my website. Use this to help inform how to crawl my website. And of course, in there will be, if you're using WordPress, posts, pages, authors, different things like that. And of course, you want to have your images baked into those sitemaps. Now, I can't give you exact advice on how to do that because depending on how you're generating your sitemap or how functionally you're using it, that may or may not be easy to do with the tool that you're already using. Fingers crossed, again, if you are a WordPress owner, using awesome tools like Yoast SEO or All-in-One SEO actually have this type of logic automatically baked into them. Typically for tools like Yoast, if one of your pages has links to other relevant content that are images or other pages, images will automatically be included in your sitemap. But if you're using a tool that for some reason doesn't have those baked into it, know that there are tools and plugins out there that you can download that will automatically index and create sitemaps of your images. Okay friends, so that should just about do it. I bet when you started watching this video, you had no idea that there were so many little things to check when it comes to an image. The title tag, the descriptions, the way you write about it, the file name, the size, the format, where you place it, the overall complexity, whether it's decorative or not. All of these have different important ranking factors for SEO, so think carefully about it and don't just upload images very mindlessly. Remember that SEO is all about the experience and the relevance and context of the content of a website. So when you're doing a good job with SEO, not only are you helping Google make your website easier to understand, you're also making your website easier for your users. And if you're doing that, with any luck, they're going to have a better experience, and that's going to result in more sales and conversions for you. We hope you liked our next SEO video. Stay tuned for the next one. My name is Jordan Snyder. Thanks for watching.